Hello folks, welcome back to the Carver's Woodshop. We're going to start a new project. Some of you have requested this one especially sometime earlier this year. It's called the Shorty Santa, and this will be the Shorty Santa series, and you'll see it will have the tassel on the top. It will be something similar to this, but in a lot longer, a lot taller form, not as stubby. But the beauty of this project, and really any of the projects that I do with the cone series, this is the cone series, but this is going to be the Shorty Santa is what I called it. And there's 3 different kinds that I started to make out of this particular pattern. This is the first one. So one thing that's really neat about it is you can take any size block, as long as it's square on the bottom, and taper it off. It's about 1 inch at the top, and I started tapering it probably 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and then I started tapering each side. Now, as you can see, this is a little dark. It's because what I do now, and you only can do this, and I'm going to share this with you now before I start carving. One of the things I've done is I took a jar and I mixed it with the solution that I put in my spray bottle, which is that 50-50, which is the 50% rubbing alcohol and 50% of the 70% rubbing alcohol that you can buy at Walmart. And this mix, what I do is I just kind of dip the whole thing halfway into the jar, let it sit for a minute, 30 or 40 seconds, flip it over, do the other side. It will draw it in very heavily at the top and on the bottom. Now, this is where you're going to do a lot of the cutting right now. But before you do that, you want to make sure that you put your design on. So I'm going to explain what you need to do before you dip it and before you do that. You can also spray it. That's up to you. I found dipping it was much easier. You do risk, and I'm going to say this on the onset, and hear me when I say this, you do run the chance of having it check or crack if your wood is not completely dry. Some of the stuff that I did this with, I had no problem whatsoever, but it's been dried for years. You want to sample it on the piece of wood that you're using and see if it will check. And the best way to do that is cut your cone, do some carvings, and throw it to the side for a couple of days and see if it will check. Do it sparingly. Don't just leave it in the water for an hour or two. It's not going to help you anyway. But you want to be very cautious of that. If you want to avoid all of that, you don't have to dip it. If you want to dip it, you can, but I'm just telling you, you run the risk of it possibly checking on you, so you want to be careful of that. Alright, with that said, I've been dipping a lot of the stuff. It just makes the carving a lot easier. I had a couple of things check even with the real dry stuff, and I overdid it. So one of the things, sometimes it corrects itself, but most of the time it will not. You'll still see some of those little checks, and then you're going to have to repair them somehow. And what I do is I wedge it and put a little piece of wood in there, and usually fix it that way, but I'll share that later. I think I shared that in one of the videos in the past, but if that happens to this, I'll show you how to do it. But anyway, this is the design. This is the top part of the tassel. So what you want to do is take about 1/4 inch before you do all the dipping on this, and pick the corner you're going to use as your front. Now this is my front where the hat's going to come up and around. So what you want to take is your finger, lean it against, and just draw your lines where you need them. Then go down probably another inch, 1.25 inches, and go down. This is going to be draped. This is going to be a one-eye Santa, just like this guy is. Okay. What we want to do is we want to make this kind of a half oval, coming down and around, and bringing it down. Hang on just a second here. Oh, there it is. Okay. You want to bring this down and around, and some pencils will work on the wet surface, some will not. This you want to bring down and around, kind of have it, you can have it offset a little bit if you want, and then mark it down a little lower in the back. So you're going to drape it down on either side, leave one side room for the eye, and then you're going to bring it down, and you're going to take it down part of the way on the back, and you're going to just kind of circle a little bit of a curvature on it. Alright, and we'll put the beard in and all that, but we want to work on the hat and on the feet. It's about another ½ an inch or so on the bottom here. You want to kind of just mark it off right away, and we'll start. Okay, I use a couple of different knives, just to share that with you. I use a Tom Ellis knife. I use a Rough Rider knives that I bought on eBay. They run anywhere from, I don't know, $8 to $20, depending what you get. Now this handle broke on because I stepped on it one time. It was one of my favorites years ago, and I reground it again, and you do have to reshape it. So somebody asked about that. So I'm trying to answer questions of stuff people have been asking me, and I kind of do it along so everybody knows. Okay, the tape that I have on here is strictly the tape that I use to for my thumb guard, and some of you know what that is. I don't have some here. Maybe in the next segment when I get it together I'll show you. Make sure you have your glove on and your thumb guard on. What you want to do, the first thing you want to do is, we have it kind of marked where it is, so let's put a stop cut, and we can start taking this off a little bit, but that's going to give us our reference point. So a stop cut is just simply pushing your knife in. You notice I'm not pushing with my hand. I'm pushing with my thumb and a little bit of pressure from the hand, but basically my thumb's pushing it in there and pushing it up from underneath, okay? And it's a much safer way. It's a good way to handle your knife, and you know, you're going to do this a lot. Use this thumb to control your knife. So if you don't know the pull and push method, you don't know how to do stop cuts, best thing to do is just to take a piece of wood and practice. Okay, just take a scrap piece of wood and practice. Now I have it marked all the way around, so I'm going to take these points off. Somebody asked me one time, well, how long does it take you to make one? Well, it all depends on the size of the block. Sometimes they take a couple of evenings to make like a 6-7 inch piece. The smaller ones I can usually get done in one evening. Not the painting, just the carving, okay? But I've been at it for a while, so I know exactly what I'm doing, and you know, when you keep doing the same thing over and over or something similar, you just get faster at it. Not that there's any race to get these things done, I just do what I feel like doing at the time. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of mark this off here. We're going to take the tip of the knife, we're just going to put a stop cut right there, okay? And same thing over here. You can also just use that's a good way to get a straight cut too, if you go across it and push with your knife a little bit. But make sure you have your glove on and all that, especially if you're a beginner. I had some mishaps this year, simply one time from being just too tired. You know, if you really are tired, you shouldn't be carving a whole lot. I know it can be relaxing for some people, but then your mind's not sharp enough to think about what you're doing. But most of it's grabbing my tools out of the toolbox or out of my tool thing. All right, we'll be back.